Okay, let's watch some more Solo Leveling, shall we? Because it's been a while since I've had a time to record a reaction to one of these episodes, because I got a little distracted with Has Been Hotel and my channel getting taken down and other things that happened, but I'm still curious about where this show is going and how much it's going to commit to its premise of going there. Because what it's laid down so far is actually interesting to me. It's actually kind of fascinating to me, because what's been laid down in the first 3 episodes could go any number of ways. Like, it could go in the sort of boring direction of just being a power fantasy, right? Like, of just being, here's our cool sort of reverse isekai protagonist. He's getting all the powers. He has the cheat ability. He's going to do all the cool shit and beat all the guys. And he's like, he's going to overcome all the things. And he's going to be the coolest guy in the world. It could go that way and not really have much more to say. Which is the same thing that makes a lot of isekai ultimately kind of boring. I'm still kind of annoyed at people who defend reincarnated as a slime to me. So that would be kind of boring, but it's a plausible way that things could go. It has also set up a couple of things that could be interesting for negative reasons, in the sense that some of the show's ethos sort of gestures ever so gently towards a reactionary, sort of semi-fashy kind of revenge fantasy, where the power fantasy exists in service of, like, this narrative of, like, this downtrodden guy who got looked down on by everyone, but now he has all the power and he's gonna take his revenge, he's gonna get all the bitches, he's gonna tear down the thing, he's gonna, like, where the power fantasy is in service to the cathartic release of this grievance, right? And those kinds of power fantasies, a lot of the time, they have a tendency to get, like, real fucked up and shitty, like, once you start thinking about what the character is actually doing. But that's also interesting. Like, it's worth seeing where a train wreck like that would go. Maybe there's something interesting to discuss there. Or, if we're very lucky, it might actually commit to, maybe not, like, it says shonen show, primarily it's about cool people doing cool shit with cool weapons and cool powers and abilities and shit, but it might commit to having a meta-narrative or a thematic narrative that explores privation and deprivation under late-stage capitalism, right? Like, there might be something in there that actually sort of tries to pick at the threads that hold that together. Or it could be a combination of all three. Who knows? Either way, I'm curious to see where it will go. So, this is a watch-along anime reaction format, which is to say that I'm not actually going to be playing the anime for you on my screen here. I'm just going to be showing you these freeze frames most of the time. And you've got a timer up here in the upper left-hand corner that will tell you where I am in the episode, and you'll use that to stay in sync with me. So I'm going to set the timer all the way back to 00000, the very beginning of the show, and I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, go. Then we're both going to go, and every once in a while, I'm going to have a little bit more to say, and I'm going to be like, okay, 3, 2, 1, pause, and then we'll pause, and you'll see a flash frame of where exactly I am. You'll use that to sync up with me. I'll say the things I have to say, and then I'll say 3, 2, 1, unpause, and we'll keep going. That's basically the way that this works. So, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, there is no way that happened. That's his cheat ability, I guess. Okay, 3, 2, 1, pause. Hang on. No. Let's not. Listen. He's not even that hot. Like, come on. Come on, be for real right now. Be for real right now. It's like, oh yeah, you got Jim Bro shredded. Good job, but that's not... Buddy, come on. Okay, so... Okay, so the thrust of this opening scene is like, we've seen Jinwoo go through all this, like, suffering and deprivation, and he's been through his first dungeon run. He's getting all these missions about, like, hey, you have to do 100 crunches and run whatever kilometer. Like, you have to do a bunch of exercise. You have to get swole. You have to do a CrossFit routine, bro. And now the episode, like, because we're having the thing that the intro of the show has sort of been teasing for a while. This transformation of Jinwoo from, I guess, from a beta into a Chad. It's what the show is going for here. And now that he's shredded, now that he's cut, like all the girls who weren't noticing him before, who like weren't really caring about him, didn't think he was hot. Now all the girls think he's hot. He's totally talking all the time, like about, oh my god, he's so fucking hot because he's cut. And it's like okay. It illustrates something that I run into a lot, actually, which is the difference between a sexual fantasy and a power fantasy, and the difference between a character being sexualized and a character being presented through the lens of power, right? Because every once in a while I'll make videos where I discuss like the tendency to use beauty and sexualization as like default traits with character design, which I think is very annoying. I don't think that should be done. I don't think like that should be default. I think those choices should be considered, and those tools, like the tool of beauty, the tool of sexualization, should be deployed thoughtfully and with intent of like exploring something about who a character is and what their deal is. And like a lot of media, especially pop media, has a tendency to just make everyone hot or attractive or like baseline beautiful, because that's surface level sort of pleasant, and that's like, yeah, the sex sells, let's not examine that truism or think about why it might be true or in which circumstance it might be true. Let's just assume that sex sells under all circumstances always, and then just make the characters like that. And when I do these critiques, especially because it tends to be worse for female characters. It happens to both genders, but or to all genders, I should say. But it's worse for female characters. Like female characters get sexualized, objectified, and like used, have beauty and sexualization used as their primary fantasies way more often. And it's annoying me because it often occludes better choices. And what people sometimes come back at me with is like, well, but like all of the Marvel movie and the comic books and all the male characters, they have muscles and they're big and they're swollen. You can see their muscles. Sometimes they're shirtless, so that's also a sex fantasy. And it's like, no, it is not. And the difference is that when a male character is presented in this fucking way, with like the shredded gym bro, really taut muscles, which are not. This is not like really what a strong body looks like. This is what a cut body looks like. This is what someone who's like doing very specific exercises to achieve a specific physique, that's what that looks like. That's not what you would look like if you were actually doing primarily like strength and fitness training. That manifests in a different way. But my point is, when bodies are presented this way, that is not a power fantasy for the female gaze. Or rather, that's not a sex fantasy for the female gaze, that's a power fantasy for the male gaze. This right here, this shot that we're getting right here, is a male gaze shot, because what it's presenting is a body that lives up to specifically a masculine ideal of beauty, a masculine ideal of sex appeal in men, right? And this is not to say that there aren't women who are into this. Absolutely, 110% there are, but it's about, like, what is the lens through which the character is designed and through which the character is seen, and this is a male character's body as being desirable, seen through, I would say, a very male lens. And part of that is specifically that the show goes out of its way to go, oh my god, all of the girls think that he's so hot, all of the girls are looking at him, and that is a male power fantasy. Right, that's not a female fantasy specifically. That's a male power fantasy, and like there's overlap. These are not like separate categories that are cleaved in twain and never shall they meet. But this is a male power fantasy. This is a fantasy of a man going like, if I just got cut, if I just went to the gym and I got really swollen, I really fucking worked on my muscles and I got really cut and I got really then all the girls would think I was so cool and they think I was so hot, and that's a male fantasy. And if you look at media of that sexualizes men, sexualizes male bodies for women, by women, for women, this is generally not the image that you see. Again, it exists, but this is generally not the default. And it certainly isn't the default that like you have this like this choir of faceless women just sort of audibly masturbating themselves over how hot a guy is. It's like, not. So this is a power fantasy for men. is what I'm trying to get at. And it's quite funny to me because it's so nakedly obvious. It's very unsubtle. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be subtle. It's just, boy, they laid it on pretty thick there. That this is why Jinwoo is like a desirable protagonist that you should want to relate to and you should want to project yourself into him. It's because and I'm sorry, guys. Like, if it's the first time you've heard this, I'm sorry. The main thing, if you want women to find you attractive, there are things you can do physically, like to sculpt and mold your body. But the main thing you're gonna need is empathy and social skills. I'm sorry, that's just the way it goes, and that's generally true pretty much for everyone. But dudes especially, you should focus on that first before you focus on trying to go to the gym and get really fucking shredded and cut. Just saying. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, go. It's like she's like getting so horny looking at him. Oh my god. Did he always have such an amazing body? I should also stress, there's nothing wrong with this power fantasy. There's nothing wrong with wanting this as a fantasy. Absolutely not. Yeah, like, I should stress, there's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong with liking that kind of power fantasy or enjoying it or like indulging in it or finding it appealing or liking it in media. There's nothing wrong with that. I know I'm sort of making fun of it a little bit, but that's not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just because I find it amusing when the power fantasy is so nakedly revealed, right? Like when a show is so honest about the pandering that it's doing. That just amuses me, right? And I have, like I said, I have my own hang-ups about like the ways that male bodies and like male sexuality is depicted in media, because you'll get shots of like the shredded, like, oh yeah, huh. Like you'll get those shots a lot, but very rarely, honestly, very rarely do you see shows that really indulge in male sensuality, right? That really indulge in like sensual pleasure in a man's body, right? Like outside of shit like yaoi, right? But you get plenty of shows that indulge heavily in the sensuality of like women's bodies, which is like, yeah. And it's like, it's a pity because like I think there's stories that could be explored there. There are power fantasies, there are ideas that could be explored there, and like not necessarily from a like female gaze or even a gay male gaze perspective, but from a straight male gaze, there are stories to glorying in male sensuality. A little, yeah, sure. He's a lot taller. Like, not just a little taller. Which, again, that fantasy of being 6 foot whatever, right? The voice performance has changed as well. He's going deeper. He's going more like resonant, more in his baritone. For the love of God, put them in intelligence. Do I really need it? God. Dude, honestly. Well, that's a very reasonable landlord. Oh no, you have to work your way up from the bottom? That sucks. Again, I'm very curious. I'm curious. 3, 2, 1, pause. I'm still very curious about exactly, because like we have this interview with the TV with the S rank hunter guy saying, "Oh yeah, I know you have to train all the time. You have to train. You have to practice. You have to keep your instincts sharp, etc." Which again, sort of like, is that question of like, if Jinwoo had spent a fuck ton of time like doing strength and like endurance training in the gym, besides being like while being an E rank hunter, surely he would have been stronger also, right? So like, what's the interplay between, because the show now makes a big deal out of, well, his body changes. His body changes because he's becoming more powerful, so his body is like also buffing up and he's becoming more shredded and he's becoming like more powerful looking. And it's like, okay, well, so what's the relationship there? Like, what's the relationship between the inherent magical power that allows him to be a hunter and the earned physical power that he gets from like working out, taking care of his body? Is he eating correctly? I wonder. That's one thing that the show hasn't touched on. Like, is he eating right? Because like getting the body to change like that usually requires a certain amount of like very careful nutritional work. Because he looked fucking skinny. Like he look in the shot we get of him with like the shirt off, with the muscles, like the fucking six-pack is pulled fucking taut, like he's flexing when he's standing there. That's the other thing, right? Like that's why I'm saying that kind of body ideal, right? Like that, the flex, the shredded muscle, all of that shit, your body only looks like that when you're either flexing or if you are like very specifically exercising in such a way to make your muscles look like that, right? The default state of an ordinary human body is not to be flexed all the time with like rippling bumpy abs going all the way down. Like that's not really, like, even for people who are fucking cut, like really fucking cut, who really do exercise, when they're just sitting down and they're relaxed, like they have fat deposits that fold like everyone else's does, right? Like, so the body being presented in that, like, really sort of with the skin just stretched taut over the muscles is like, that's not a natural way for a body to look, which is why it's a power fantasy, right? Like, it's deeply unrealistic because it's serving a narrative semiotic purpose, right? It's presenting some kind of satisfying idea to the audience. And like, one of the ways that you get to a body that can look like that is you have to very, very, very carefully control your meals. because like that's like when you look at a bodybuilder, for example, when they're on competition, like when the muscles are really stretched taut like that, they are dehydrated and they haven't been eating. Because that's the only way you can get the skin to really like to get your body fat percentage that low and get the skin to really stretch over your body. When bodybuilders are not trying to be competition ready, they don't look like that either, right? So this is a matter of very specific presentation. Anyway, 3, 2, 1, unpause. Oh, I kind of like the character designs there. They are NPCs, like, but they have distinctive character designs. Okay, so they're gonna run into something that's more powerful than they can handle. He's gonna show off. Okay, no liability for anything that happens inside the dungeon. An especially dangerous job. Interesting. Nice armor, dude. NPC characters in anime can often be very boring, and these are clearly designed not to be too interesting, but they are like distinct. They each have their own sort of design. $900 billion, Jesus. I mean, I know it's probably Korean yuan, but Korean won? Is it won in Korea? I don't actually know. Still seems like a lot of money. Paladin. What a puppy. Is he gonna die terribly? Like, is he just marked out as the victim here? Oh, are we going there already? he gets now to act like the confident veteran, right? As a reversal from when he was like the powerless rookie guy. Spiders, I bet. How did you not see all the fucking holes in the walls? Oh, hey, there they are. Is that a crossbow or a fucking... or a gun? Could you make up your mind? He wants to be cool so bad. Aw. My. Is that fear or avarice? Oh, the idea being that, like, the other hunters might turn on the kid who has all the expensive gear. I see. Again, physical training? Again, with the fucking super duper cut, like, really shredded body. Ultra low body fat kind of thing. That's a pretty effective montage. Ooh, now we're talking spiders. What's inside those cocoons? Good tension here. I like the tension is really well managed. I can feel it building. There's gonna be a boss monster. You should probably have read the contract beforehand. The tension is built up really well. I see. They're leaving them to die. Probably on a full stomach, huh? There's that betrayal. I like the intrigue. It's well built up. Yeah, there we go. No, they would still have left you behind. Oh, now we get like the walking forward being the cool guy scene. Yeah. Again, power fantasy. But it's well executed. Like, it's really well paced. Yeah, again, the show once again sort of pivots to part of its world building is that this business is consumptive, right? Like that people's bodies are consumed to run this business, to extract these resources. Which again, like that sort of at least for me gestures towards the show has something on its mind about the ways in which like the pursuit of profit, the pursuit of capital creates these cycles of abuse and violence and creates these incentives, right? Because that's what the evil hunter group are responding to, is that there are incentives, right? Like there are explicit incentives built into this system of privatized hunting where you can make more money if you just leave a couple of guys behind to die every time. A couple of guys who, like, no one can prove that you didn't anything to them, and, like, people die all the time, so don't worry about it, right? A system with no accountability and no consequences for negative behavior. And that's, like, yeah, again, that's something that reflects on the ways in which that certain companies are run in the real world, right? Like, right now, like you're watching this in a computer of some kind, like whether that's in your phone or in your laptop or in a PC or whatever it is, and that device that you're watching this on, it contains cobalt, right? That's a necessary component for the production of the transistors and the microchips that you need for a computer to work. And cobalt is mined, among other places, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is currently undergoing a genocide, but it's mined with a lot of slave labor, it's mined with a lot of child labor, and the bodies of those people who mine that shit out are consumed in order to create the electronics and the consumer products that we depend on here in the West, right? And because it's far away in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where we don't know exactly what's happening and we can't really impose any direct consequences on people who do it, the incentive is there to consume human beings like resources, to spend their lives like tokens in order to keep extracting these valuable resources and keep the system running, right? So for me, at least, in that scene there at the end, like in that thing of that laying out the incentives in that way, yeah, like it does feel to me like the show has something on its mind about the ways that like late stage extractive capitalism works, which keeps me interested and keeps me curious. So I think I'll watch episode 6 as well. Again, the show, a couple of people have been in my comments saying that the show eventually turns to shit, right? Like the show eventually turns towards being like just a power fantasy with just the cool guy doing all his power shit, and it sort of loses its sense. And I'm perfectly ready to believe that can happen. That happens to most shonen. Like most shonen at some point lose sight of their original concept and sort of just devolve into constantly escalating more and more like extreme power battles, right? Like that's what happened to Bleach, which I mourn forever. Like by the time they hit, like the Soul Society arc sort of marks the point when the show becomes more interested in its power battles, in like having cool characters fight against each other in cool ways, rather than the monster a week ghost story that it started with, right? That it loses its original concept there. Dragon Ball loses its original concept. R.I.P. Toriyama, by the way, you are the greatest, one of the greatest that ever lived. Sometime around, like, with the Saiyan saga, like, after Goku has defeated Piccolo and sort of, like, rejected becoming God and he flies off with his wife, that's when the story kind of goes, okay, no more sort of adventure exploring the world, finding the Dragon Ball, no more questing. Now it's go find more cooler, more powerful people to fight, right? And like same thing with Naruto. Naruto like Naruto managed to hold on to its original concept a lot better than a lot of other shonen, but it also fell into the hole of more and more powerful characters fighting more and more elaborate and extravagant battles, escalating the stakes, you know, constantly. And it's a shonen thing. It happens to shonen when it runs for long enough, is that because the fights and the power, like Jujutsu Kaisen, it happened to real fucking fast. Because a big part of the draw for people is the fights and the fight narratives that exist there. That sort of takes over and becomes the whole thing. Maybe that'll happen to Solo Leveling as well. I don't know. But for now, at least, I am curious and interested to see where it's going with what it's doing. So, yeah, I'll watch episode 6 now. Bye.